change to full. The shows just keep getting brighter on Global Voice Broadcasting. Shows about everything that matters to you. From love, living, and life. If you're talking about it, we're talking about it this fall on Global Voice Broadcasting. Don't miss a second. Welcome to the world of Cabarabia, the world where Broadway, jazz, comedy, and pop share the spotlight, and a 2-drink minimum. With your host, producer, director Clifford Bell, keeping the world safe for live performances in intimate settings on Global Voice Broadcasting.
And welcome back. Welcome back to my little podcast that could, my weekly rumination on all things that are relevant to the nightclub experience. Cabarabia here on Global Voice Broadcasting. We've been doing this show now for about 4 months, and I feel like are really hitting our streak today. I can't tell you how proud I am to have our guests in the studio with us today. One of the most important aspects of what it is to inhabit the world of the nightclub is the people who actually run the nightclubs, who own the nightclubs, who operate the nightclubs, that make them available to have all the magic that happens. And today we have the owner of, in my opinion, the most prestigious, most respected club in the city, Catalina Jazz Club. And I wanted to nickname this show, Yes, Virginia, There Is a Catalina, because here is Catalina. A lot of people don't know that there's an actual woman named Catalina that is the source of the name. But please welcome my guest, Catalina Popescu.
Popescu, that is. Hi, how are you?
Catalina is from Romania, so I'm that your name doesn't come up, your last name doesn't come as easily to my tongue as it might, but
so you know, in my country, half of the country is named Popescu.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's Smith in Romania.
It's Smith, all right.
Well, I'm extremely happy and honored to have you here with us today. I have a wonderful working relationship with Catalina. I produce a lot of shows there. I have ever since they moved to their newest location. But this is the first time that we're really going to sit around and get to talk for a while in depth about some things. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Gabe, would you hit us with that first picture? I have a still here of a long shot of the beautiful interior of the Catalina Jazz Club. Then a little closer to the stage, and then one more picture. That's a picture of you, Catalina, on the stage that was, I guess, in a Los Angeles Times feature around the time of your anniversary?
It was Los Angeles Times and also was in a TV show.
Ah, very nice. What was the TV show?
Cliff, don't go that far. I can't remember everything.
All right, well, we'll summon one thing at a time then.
Okay.
All right. I'm referring now that where the venue that you're at the moment, because you actually did begin at another space. Will you tell us a little bit about how all that got started?
Oh, sure. We began this wonderful trip, the adventures, in 1986, and we were at 1640 Cahuenga, which was just below Hollywood Boulevard, and right next door to Shelley's Man, which was another historical jazz place of Los Angeles. So we opened the restaurant itself in May of 86, and the club was opened in October of 86.
Wow. Now it's interesting. We were just talking a little bit in the green room before we got started. You came to it with no real background in running a jazz club, certainly not what it turned out to be. How did that all come to be?
Now, myself and my husband, we had no idea about jazz except of one name that was allowed back in our country, because if you remember, our country was right behind, the Iron Curtain, and it was very difficult for anything coming from the West to get there. But the one person that came to perform and we were able to listen to was Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh, wow.
So we remember the name and we remember the man, and we tried to go after him and to have him perform at our club. And not easy, but we did get him, and he was performing and putting the club on the map.
Wow. So as I understand it, so you moved here from Romania with your husband, and at first you had opened a restaurant that you said had not
Right.
done all that well.
That was in the May of '86.
Uh-huh.
And after we realized it's not going to do all that well, then we got some idea from friends about jazz going very well with wine and dine.
Uh-huh.
And we had very good advice, and we in October of '86 we opened the club.
So just talking to you a little bit backstage, if you will, it was a different climate there. There were a lot of other places that had great music happening and jazz music, whereas nowadays I think there's almost nothing really.
It was a different climate, and if we would have known then what we know now, to be honest with you, I don't know if we would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we were so raw in respect to show business and jazz and entertainment of sort, that was a very good plus for us because we were learning as we were going.
Right, and you didn't know what you didn't know.
We didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't know what we were getting into it, and everything sounded fabulous. And here we are, 27 years later, unfortunately without my husband, which passed away 6 years ago. But the club is still there and doing well, and looking forward to, I don't know exactly how many years, but looking forward to the future.
And thriving. Yeah, I know you just had your 25th anniversary, which was a big celebration with a lot of major performers. And you said Doug McIntyre, the radio.
Yeah, that was in October of 2011,
Uh-huh.
and Doug McIntyre was the MC, and also was Bubba Jackson. He was also the second MC of the second part of the show.
Uh-huh.
And we had a lot of great performers, and that was anywhere from jazz, cabaret, rock style jazz, you name them, we got them all in there.
Right.
And it was a fabulous celebration.
Well, you over the years, I mean, from starting from no background in it whatsoever to having your first celebrity musician be Dizzy Gillespie, over the years you've acquired literally every legend there is. Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, Stanley Clark. Help me out with some more people that have visited you.
Oh, of course, we had Ahmad Jamal and McCoy Tyner, Betty Carter, Carmen McRae. You just name them.
Yeah, there's really nobody
unfortunately,
that
we
hasn't.
don't have them with us no more.
Right.
You know, because that's the way life goes.
Right.
But we had the pleasure and the honor to have them perform on that stage.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you a little story. When we had Dizzy Gillespie performing, he brought in a lot of the legends to perform with him on the stage at the same time, which never happened before and never happened after.
Right.
He had Carmen McRae, Tony Bennett, he had Miles Davis, he had Mrs. Alice Coltrane. They were all performing in the same stage.
And I bet nobody was filming with their camera phones the way we do every
yeah.
single solitary thing.
No, we didn't have that then. And of course, I was too involved with the business to realize what I had on that stage in that moment.
Right.
And then no picture was left from that. But my memory is pretty vivid even today.
Right. You were telling me another really interesting story. One of the first things that we found that we had in common when we first met is that my brother has worked for many, many years with Herbie Hancock. He was one of the main keyboard inventors involved in a lot of in Herbie's innovations. And you have some history with Herbie as well. You were telling me about the Miles Davis project.
Yeah, well, with Herbie and all the guys in the band, because a lot of them perform at the club, and that included Wallace Roney and Tony Williams and Wayne Shorter. And for that particular Grammy and that year, they invited me to go with them. And of course,
they sent the car.
I did go in style, you know. They sent the limo, and that never happened afterwards. So let me just tell you. So we went there, and it was such a pleasure and such a great experience for me to have the band won the Grammy for that night, and to be next to them and to be filmed. And everybody called me the next day telling me about the the television and how I looked and how I did that. And I said, wow, that was great. Yeah.
It tells you what those guys are like. I know from my brother, they're very, very warm family.
Oh, yeah.
Take care of the people around them
Oh,
kind
yes.
of people.
They were just great.
And it also tells you what you meant to them, that they would include you in that. You
Yeah.
know, what a big role you play. And you know, once again, getting back to my larger premise of why I do this series, you know, I wanted to do this podcast because there are so many aspects that I find that go into what makes up the nightclub experience. The performer's background, publicity, marketing, getting booked, agenting. But the bottom line is clubs. The people who run the clubs. That's what makes this world that I call Cabarabia. And you didn't go to college to run the most prestigious jazz club in L.A. You've
Definitely not.
figured it out on the job.
Absolutely. And if you only know how many nights myself and my husband would spend without sleep just talking.
Yeah.
But the fact was that one night I will be down and he will be all optimist. The other night we'll switch places. But that was a big help for us because we kept each other, you know, in good spirits all the time.
Right.
So
They
that's
say
what-
the key to a successful relationship is don't be down at the same time.
Exactly.
Take turns.
Well, that was it. That's why we had a relationship for 32 years.
All right.
You know.
Well, since we're talking about the new place, we'll just mention that you left Cahuenga after
17 years.
After 17 years, you sort of outgrew the place. It was much smaller and didn't have parking attached and a lot of limiting things about it. You were ready to grow.
Yeah, we were ready to grow, and unfortunately, we are not able to book the people we would love to book because of the space issue.
Uh-huh.
You know, and that was telling us that it was time to grow and to look for something else.
So you found?
We found this new place we are on right now, but it took us 3 years to do it because it's not that easy to find the perfect spot for you.
Right.
And we did. After 3 years, we found the spot and we built it. And when we closed the place in Cahuenga, 5 days later, we opened a new one.
Wow.
So that worked pretty nice. But I cannot tell you how stressful that was.
Yeah, I'm
You
sure.
know, you can imagine.
And the new place is, in terms of being a nightclub, it's huge. It's, you know, most things, the nightclub experience is basically, generally speaking, stereotypically 100 seats. And your club now is legally 250, right?
Yeah, it's about
It's
250.
Fire marshal 250. It's
Correct.
quite large.
Yeah.
And I want to show a little demo. One of the few things I'm going to show video-wise today is my client and my good friend, and also the gentleman who owns this establishment, Global Voice Broadcasting, is Todd Murray, a wonderful singer who is currently enjoying a lot of success with his show Croon, which I directed, and we actually debuted it. We made the premiere performance was at
the club,
at the Catalina Club about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, July, and Todd had a feature on NBC about him, and which also shows a lot about the club and interviews you for a second. So I thought I'd share that. So Gabe, hit it.
Legendary jazz supper club in the middle of Hollywood. It's hard to find, and it has the feel of kind of one of those old school speakeasies, but oddly enough, it's attracting new school kind of crowd.
Yes, and our Carrie Bergman is live in Hollywood with a look inside a place that's sure to catch your attention. Carrie?
Certainly we hope so. This could be a modern-day version of a speakeasy. You don't have to know the secret password, but you do have to know the passageway. Catalina's Jazz Club is actually on the corner of Sunset and McCadden, but you can't get in there from there. You have to go through the parking lot. And fans of Catalina's Jazz Club who have been going there for several years at its different incarnations already know this game of hide and seek. But they insist that once you make it through this labyrinth and down the stairs to the front door, which is in the back, they say the trip is all worth it. There are just a handful of these clubs in L.A. where the music of yesterday is getting a decidedly contemporary treatment by a generation several removed from the musicians who first put jazz, the blues, big band, or crooning into the lexicon. Elliot Elliot Deutsch admits that the median age of Elliot Deutsch Big Band is well under 30, and yet here they are, wailing to a crowd that knows its music.
A lot of the LA big bands, well, it comes sort of out of the cool jazz thing, and the bebop thing. So, I mean, we're playing a sort of high-energy, complex music. It's complicated rhythmically, but not as complicated harmonically as stuff you get on the East Coast.
Places like the Catalina Jazz Club is where today's musicians can perform in an atmosphere steeped in yesterday. Food, wine, low lights, and banquets, all part of the classic package where on any given night, true fans of whatever genre takes the stage can find just what they're looking for.
Here I stand. I'm your man.
Todd Murray is another artist who's most comfortable with a throwback style. He says his voice dictates his musical direction, but there is a deeper connection to stardust and swing.
You know, you gotta love this music because it's really about lyric. They're clever lyrics, they're intimate, they tell a story, as opposed to, you know, a lot of modern lyrics don't necessarily pull you in.
Murray is among the ranks of determined artists who propel this music from past to present. The Bublays and Conics of the world who treasure it enough to keep it alive, both for audiences who remember when and those who are here to discover it.
Last night, the concert we had, there was a girl who just graduated from high school, and she said she knew every word. And I was like, oh no, did I screw any of them up? But I did.
Catalina's has a long history of throwing the spotlight on talent in LA. The walls are lined with the artists who have filled this club with their sound and their soul.
I love to see at the end of the night when people leave and I see their smile and their faces. It's like, okay, I accomplished so much. I took 3 hours out of their life and made it better and brighter.
And Todd Murray is at the club tonight and tomorrow night before he moves on to the Carlisle in New York. For a rundown on all the jazz clubs you can find in and around LA, log on to NBCLA.com and search jazz. We're live tonight in Hollywood. I'm Kerry Bergman, Channel 4 News. Back to the studio.
Well, thank you, Kerry Bergman. That was a nice feature, right?
That was fabulous.
I love it. Gives people a sense of how beautiful the club is. You know, one of the recurring themes that we do in my series, now that we've been doing this for about 4 months, is I have a thing where I call At the Corner of Jazz and Cabaret, because I find that there's more of an evolving and emerging of those two disciplines. I know that in the past, when you opened, say, when you moved to the new place 8 years ago, I think you were more strictly jazz, and I think over time, can you feel the influence of more like Broadway-ish kind of things and TV stars that have act? I know you've had a lot of success with people like Linda Carter and Rosalind Kine and people like that certainly are not jazz per se, but they fill your club, that the upscale audience comes for them.
Absolutely, and I do feel that it's a lot of common territory between jazz and cabaret, and a lot of them can cross from one to another very easily.
Right.
And that makes it beautiful, and people do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And while before, like you said, we did a lot of strictly jazz, now I find it that it's better to combine and to have different type of experiences, in addition to the fact that we have people coming from different areas of music that can appreciate and learn about jazz and about cabaret.
Right. And you know, and I think that you haven't lost any of your credibility of that you still are the premier place where the higher end pure jazz legend people do come. You had Stanley Clarke recently. I know Herbie came.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you see, when we first opened, my thought was, and this is how it shows everywhere in every advertising that we do, it's nothing but the best in jazz. Mm-hmm. Jazz can be the cabaret. Right. Jazz can be the American songbooks.
Right.
Jazz can be the rock jazz,
right.
the contemporary jazz, the big band jazz. That's that's all combined into nothing but the best.
Right. I mean, I know like some of your most popular acts at the moment are people like Steve Terrell
Yes.
and Jane Monheit,
Yes.
who have credibility in the jazz world, but also are in, you know, what I call more cabaret in terms of that they are more, they entertain, they tell a story.
Sure, they
know.
entertain. The real pure jazz musicians they have the tendency to perform to themselves.
Right.
A lot of times, and that's okay. But you always need to interfere with the audience to just have this communication with them.
Right.
So everybody, when they leave, they feel great.
Right.
You
And I
know.
know you just had like, the younger generation. I find that there's a real resurgence of the younger people coming up from the Broadway world, like Megan Hilty. I know you just had a smashing.
We had a smashing 2 shows with Megan Hilty, and not that I was smashing, but the quality of her music and
Yeah.
the quality of her singing
So talented.
was so fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people I know they appreciate her very much for being a great actress and,
And
being
funny.
in.
She's a
and
really strong comedian.
Okay,
Yeah.
and being in some quite famous now television shows.
Uh-huh.
But I am so happy that they also realized what a great musician she is.
Absolutely.
And I did hear and I did read about her that she started as a singer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I saw her for the first time in Wicked, and you just think that nobody's going to be anywhere near what Kristen Chenoweth was, because she's sort of the defining star of that show. She was hilarious and brilliant singer, so talented.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, she's deserving all the success she's getting, and she's a kid. She's young.
She's young and she's also pretty fabulous and beautiful.
Yes, good. And that was just this weekend, right? Just a night or two ago.
She was here last Friday,
Mhm.
and the show was just great.
Yeah.
Just great.
And you have a long, ongoing relationship with Steve, I know. I'm very good friends with Quinn Johnson, who is Steve's musical director. So I know they play twice a year?
They play twice a year, but what you need to know about Steve and our relationship is
Mhm.
that he performed his first show ever
Uh-huh.
at the club when we were in Cahuenga.
Oh, wow.
Because Steve, he was
He was a music executive.
exactly, and he
Right.
was a music businessman, entertainment
Right,
businessman.
right.
So all of a sudden, I mean, not all of a sudden, but he knew he could sing. So they were trying to see how people will react to his singing.
Uh-huh.
So they brought him to the club, and we had a great show. And Steve was the best. And ever since,
Talk about an entertainer. He really
Oh.
works the crowd.
he works the crowd and he knows how to work it from every aspect. And Steve is a great musician. He has a wonderful voice. And now I'm so happy when I'm in the elevator or the doctor's office or everywhere. And here is Steve Tyrell performing. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I kind of discovered him.
Yeah, right.
Kind of.
And he has a big career. He really does. He has many albums out. He plays huge venues all over the place. Full
Yeah.
calendar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He does because,
And that happened late in life. I find it very inspiring because, he was 50s plus when
Yes.
he became a rock star. You don't see that happen much.
You don't see that happen much, but you also have to remember that he had contact with a lot of producers and a lot of movies.
Yeah. Well, he was a
people
very successful music industry guy. He was a record producer.
Exactly.
A music
he was,
supervisor.
He was a great, and then he shined so much in that Father of the Bride movie,
Right. Mhm.
when everybody knew of him after that with The Way You Look Tonight.
Right.
And when he sings that tune, people are melting.
And you have Jane Monheit for New Year's Eve.
We're gonna have Jane, and that's a tradition now for the last 7 years, I'll say, that she comes in for the few days before New Year's, and then she celebrates New Year's with us.
Nice.
And she's also fabulous, and I know her since she was a young girl. Now she's a wonderful married lady with a most beautiful, gorgeous baby. Not a baby anymore, a little man.
Yeah.
And she always travels with her boy, and that's also fabulous.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
I went to see Quinn and Kevin Winard, who plays drums for
Yes.
Steve. They were playing for somebody at the LACMA at the
Yes,
LA Art Museum. And Kevin and I were talking to, I think his name is Andy. Is that Jane's husband? Andy,
Andy,
the
yeah.
drummer.
Yeah.
We were talking to Andy, who I didn't really know, and he said, "Oh, you have to meet my wife." And in over comes Jane, in like Daisy May shorts and tank top and carrying the baby. I'm like, what? Because I've only seen Jane, all glamorized.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny.
It is funny, but it's so the whole band has a very family-oriented feeling,
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about for a second is the comeback of Jack Sheldon.
Yes, please.
The Jack Sheldon and his big band, which will be here the 29th and the 30th of November.
Mm-hmm.
And like always, we are celebrating Jack's birthday, which is November the 30th. But what's so important is Jack is coming back from a very strong stroke, which almost paralyzed him and made his life very difficult. And I just want to applaud and tell him, if he could ever hear what I say, how proud I am of him, the way he progressed and the way he is approaching life with such optimism and such courage. And the fact that he's coming back to perform, learning how to play with his left hand because he cannot use his right hand
How long
anymore.
ago was the stroke?
Like about 3 years ago.
Wow.
Okay, so he will be at the club performing. And people do call and say, oh, so Jack Sheldon's band will be performing. And I will say, no. It's Jack Sheldon band with Jack Sheldon.
And you go way back with him.
Oh, we go way back.
When did you first start working with him?
At least 20 years ago.
Yeah.
At least 20 years ago. And the people should know that he was the right hand and the best friend for
Merv Griffin.
Exactly.
That's how I first remember him, seeing him on TV.
Because he was his band leader.
Yeah.
And they were friends for life.
And he was such a character. He was such a personality.
And he still is. He's such a wonderful guy and such a wonderful player. And I wish everybody could come and see him coming back to do what he most loved to do.
Oh, wonderful. So what are those dates again, Catalina?
Will be November 29th and 30th, which is Friday, Saturday, right after Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to take just a couple minutes here now. I do a little commercial break segment where I talk about some listings of some things that are going on. Most of these are things that I'm producing around town, one of which I'm producing at Catalina's, which is going to be fantastic. So this is a segment I called 1001 Cabarabian Nights. And next up for us is where we'll be on. We'll come to Jack on the Friday, but on the Saturday I have a show at the M Bar with Karen Benjamin and Alan Chapman, and they're very, very talented children, Molly Chapman and Jake Chapman. They're calling the evening the Von Chaps, and it's the Saturday night of the Thanksgiving weekend. You let me bring Karen and Alan to Catalina's before. They're a fabulous performing duo that have played Carnegie Hall in New York, big stars in the cabaret scene, and they are very, very talented. This is the first time the entire family has performed together in a holiday sort of themed show. Jake is a very, very accomplished vibraphonist who's going to college at Columbia, and Molly is a teenage singer-songwriter that's getting a lot of buzz around town. So that's Saturday the 30th. On December 8th, Molly Chapman, once again, this young girl, singer-songwriter. I've been producing Molly for a couple of years now, and we've played House of Blues and Whiskey a Go-Go and M Bar and Catalina and all over the place. And she and a group of her girlfriends, very talented teenage girls, got together earlier in the year to do a fundraiser for an organization called Teens Helping Teens, a benefit for the Los Angeles Youth Network. And since we did that night in May, which was extremely successful, wonderful show, packed house, raised a ton of money, I have learned so much about this organization, the Los Angeles Youth Network out of Hollywood. They take care of homeless teens. And I have met, I am not exaggerating, in very arbitrary, unrelated experiences, probably 5 different kids who have said to me that this organization saved their life. They are so hands-on and doing such incredible work with the disenfranchised youth of the streets of Hollywood, of which tragically there are a lot. And so these very, very talented girls from I'm going to just say a privileged background, have gotten together. Catalina has booked us at the club for an unusual event because Manny had the
Brilliant
idea to make it a brunch. So rather than an evening performance, we're actually doing a brunch on Sunday, December 8th. Doors open at 11 and the show's at noon. And also we're having two guests along with the rest of the girls. We're having Catherine Gallagher, who's a rising young singer-songwriter who just won a Hollywood Media Award for a song she has in the soundtrack for the new Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Thanks for Sharing. And a young guy named Joaquin Morenga, who is a graduate of this program, who now is on full scholarship going to school at Long Beach College. And he's a really talented oboe player. And I went to an event the other night that he performed at, and it's going to be a very, very great show. So please turn out for that, December 8th at Catalina's. December 11th, I'm going to do my Cabarabia Spotlight, presenting Pat Whiteman, Andrew Apple, and Kira Alvarez at the M-Bar. On December 17th, I'm doing a little shindig at the Jazz Upstairs at Vitello's with a collection of people that I've all done shows at Catalina's. When we do their main shows, we do them at Catalina's. Mark Winkler, Dolores Scorsese, Chambers, Herbert and Ellis, Jeffrey Gimbel, Sean Ryan, Jackie Gibson, a bunch of people, really, really fun jazz group. A little holiday evening, December 17th at Vitello's. And then on December 21st at M-Bar, I'm going to have a little Christmas party. Cabarabian Christmas. So check that out. All right, returning back to my in-studio guest, Catalina of the prestigious Catalina Jazz Club. You know, I got a chuckle because Catalina was telling me that one of the job that she had while she was in the process of opening the first club was she used to run the Bullocks Wilshire Tea Room. And for anybody who's a Los Angelino knows the history of that incredibly elegant place. And I was telling her that I have a very flamboyantly Queenie friend who used to always call me up and say, let's go have a Republican girls' lunch at Bullocks Wilshire Tea Room, because it was like this very classy throwback to a past. And Catalina worked there. You have to tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, Catalina worked there, and she started working there as a help for Christmas, doing Christmas packaging.
Oh my God, I love that.
This is what I
I mean, that's
did.
a piece of history.
It is.
It is. It really is.
That's a piece of history, and I went there because I love the store, and I applied for that job, and I got it in the spot, and that was my great experience for the next 10 years with Bullocks Wilshire.
Yeah.
And it was so fabulous, to work in that kind of place, to meet this kind of people, and to be in that environment where everything is laid back and beautiful, and everybody is so polite and so nice, and it was wonderful. And we used to have that tea time for the tea room.
The tea.
And every so often now, I just treat myself to a high tea somewhere in the city, which is so fabulous. I wish everybody will do that.
Right.
And the Christmas, that was always beautiful, with the most gorgeous white feather tree that was put up in the store. And and as I told you in the green room, I had that great experience in the elevator, being right next to Princess Anne of England.
Wow.
And she, of course, she was going to have her high tea.
Yeah, you don't get that at Macy's.
No, it's so unfortunate, but you don't get that anywhere anymore.
No.
And I would treasure that memory for the rest of my life, to be next to a princess, a real princess.
Right. And you were there till the club started taking off.
Yes, yes. I was there until 1986. And actually 1987 I finished working there. I worked double shifts for a little while. And the reason I also left was because the store was already purchased by Federated Department Stores. And things were starting to change. They started to change already. And then soon after that, they closed the store.
Yeah.
So.
We were talking about because there's no formal education, particularly for what you have ultimately learned in 27 years. It is the day in and day out of dealing with all the crazy personalities and all the squabbling and all the all the over the top egos and things that are just inherent problems to making music for a living. I want to say that you are known for being one of the most easy to deal with, the most fair, direct, and talk to me a little bit about your philosophies around that.
Well, first of all, if people think that they want to have a very successful business without being there and without having hands-on, wrong. Get that out of your mind, because that will never happen. So that's a hands-on, and I'm always there. And if I don't have a dishwasher, I do the dishes. And if I don't have a bartender, I do the drinks. So my theory with my employees is, if I can do it, you can do it. So that's the way it works. And as a matter of fact, most of my employees been with me for over 15 years.
Right.
Just a few additions here and there, because some of them, they want to do other things in their lives, so that's why we replace them. But otherwise, I think in my entire career at this place, I fired 2 people. So that's pretty good. And then that, I work with 3 different categories of people. One being the customers, one being the employees, one being the musicians. So in regards to the musicians, they are a very finicky type of group of people,
right?
Because of what they do. They're very talented, very special, and very touchy. And I know how to I learn how to deal with them, so I make everybody feel good.
Right.
Because they all have different type of feel good situation.
Right.
So I just found out that the simple equation that works is hire them, they play, I pay. Everything else is totally secondary.
Right.
And I always try to give them a beautiful place and a lot of attention when they play, because they need to feel good in order to deliver the great goods to the people.
Right.
And this is what the people are there to come and see, the great performances. If you're going to have an unhappy performer, what kind of a performance will they deliver? Very bad.
Right.
But if they have a great experience, a happy one, everybody benefits from it, including us.
Yes.
So that's how I always think, and that's how I always try to, to treat them this way. Of course, that we have some exceptions here and there, but they don't count.
Yes, but I can say I've known you for a long time, certainly not as long as a lot of people have, but I've had many not professional nights at the Catalina, and everything you're saying is exactly right. I've never seen you not be consistent and calm and giving and caring and clean, and if there is a problem, because people do create dramas, there's always this stress or that drama or this problem, and you always handle it with such grace and such ease, and I've never seen a complication that you didn't smooth out.
But it shouldn't be. What I always tell my employees is, we don't have problems, we have solutions, and we need to take care. And the best way, because everybody knows how to react in a calm and perfect situation.
Right.
The strange part comes when you have a stressful situation and when you need to react, and then is when you need to calm down, to look at the things and make the best decision where everybody should benefit.
And that's the trick. That's the challenge of working in the live entertainment business, because time is a factor. The clock is ticking, everything has to happen, the audience has to come in, and the food has to be ready, and the performers have to be ready, and the band has to be set up, and the sound man has to be in place, and there's a lot of elements that have to converge on a timeline, and so there is stress around that.
Of course, it's stress, but you need to pay a little attention, and you need to dedicate your life to that, for that moment at least.
That's
and
the
then
thing.
Exactly.
That
because
is
if
the
you're
thing.
just going to come there to do a job, you're never going to work.
The people that come 5 minutes late and leave 5 minutes early don't do well in this business.
That will never work.
Yeah.
You know, that's why sometimes when I hear some of my servers, for example, going to a table and saying, "Well, I just do my job," I tell them, if I'm going to hear that one more time, you're going to leave.
Right.
Unfortunately, you have to leave, because if you are here just to do a job,
Right.
you don't belong here.
Yeah, all your staff are always very warm and very responsive and very nice.
Yeah.
And not to just sit here and be congratulatory, but clubs close. I mean, New York is like decimated. The Algonquin's gone, Feinstein's is gone. Everything is out. I mean, and these were the highest end places, and they're not making it anymore.
Absolutely, and I mean, don't even look at New York. Look at Los Angeles. What do we have?
Yeah.
Very few, very, very few names of the clubs, and what they do, it's, because they're afraid of going in a big style, because you can lose so much money and you can just go bankrupt in no time if you don't pay attention.
And I think another thing that people don't understand, if they're not professionals at it, if they don't do it day in and day out, is that it's every single day is a new opening night. It's like, a lot of people who are hobbyists or like have a little bit of a foot in the music business or whatever, like they prepare for months and months and months and then do their big show, and then they want to sleep for 4 days and receive all their accolades. But you are there the next morning.
Oh, the next morning.
Loading in the next band, loading in the next audience, loading in the next...
The show must go on.
Yeah, every single day.
And I always say, Monday morning, it's like I take dices, throw the dices, and then we'll see what that week will bring,
Right, yeah.
But if it wouldn't be the way it is if it's not like this.
Right.
Because that's what brings the excitement, that's what brings the success, that's what brings the happiness for everybody,
Right.
So that feels good.
So you still do love it?
Oh, believe me, I couldn't do it if I don't love it.
Right.
I will never be able to do it, because this is not something like you just said, 9 to 5.
Right.
This is something that you breathe, you eat, you drink. This is something that lives with me.
Right.
The moment that I won't have this place, then will be different. But as long as I have it, I have to give it all.
Right. My associate producer Trisha asked an interesting question earlier about whether or not you ever wanted to have another club.
Trisha, dear, that was a great question. But the answer is a capital A and capital no.
But you did say if you ever did, you'd do it in a different city.
Oh, it has to be in a different city, because, for example, this Los Angeles market cannot hold two of us.
No.
That's not the way it works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And to start a venture in a different city, it will be too difficult, and I will lose my grip and the two of them, and it's not going to work.
Right.
So I will be here. As long as I will do it, I will be here.
Excellent. Well, we're certainly thrilled to have you. Is there anything else coming up in the near future that you want to mention or promote?
Well, like I said, please come and see the great Jack Sheldon, and at the end of November, 29/30. And I love to mention a great guitarist which used to perform with Miles Davis. That's Mike Stern, and he will be here in December. Come and see Jane Monheit. She is the most fabulous.
Yeah.
And she will come and spend New Year's Eve with us. She always puts on a great show. And then January comes, and here we go again in the new year with another great, wonderful nights of jazz and cabaret.
And you always have Steve Terrell's Valentine's Week, right?
Oh, yeah. Steve Terrell is always here on the week of Valentine and the weekend after that. That's the tradition. And that will stay the same for this coming February.
Right. You've had Michael Feinstein, too, I remember.
Yes.
I came to see Was he doing a Bergman show, or why would?
Yes, he was doing Bergman with the
I remember him with the Bergmans.
Yes,
right.
He was doing the show, their music, and he was playing with him with the Bergman.
Yeah.
And he did a great job, and I just love him. I think he's the greatest.
Yeah, I've known him for a long time, and I have worked at the Feinsteins that used to be at the Cinegrill for him a lot, and. But something about that Bergman show, that was the first time that I was ever really just like awestruck by what a good singer he is. You know, we all know he's a personality. We all know that he's the raconteur and the carrying the traditions of all the lyricists, you know, the Gershwin and all that stuff. He's the archivist of all that music. But he's a killer singer. That particular Bergman show, he sang.
He sang.
Like
that show. That's why he told me some time ago before that he would love to come with something different. So then he found this idea to do the Bergman show. Yeah. And it was fabulous. Yeah. It was
a really good show.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful show.
Beautiful show.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, I think we've come to the end of our time. Are there any final? I always like to give people the opportunity to say a final thought. If there's any final thought you want to leave us with.
Well, a final thought I want to leave you and all the audience with is that music is the best what can happen in our lives, and will be really great if we will pay attention more to music than to a lot of other things, which are so unnecessary. And music is the one that brings us all together. And promoting the music, it's been nothing but a pleasure for myself, my life, and my family life. So I wish everybody happy holidays and all the health and happiness in the world.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Catalina. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
My pleasure.
It means so much to me. I really,
and you know I love you so much.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. It's really an honor to have you here. It's not just a pleasure; it's an honor.
Thank you so much.
And you have given me so much opportunity and support to work at your beautiful club, and it's a pleasure to work with you and everybody involved in your staff, Manny, Dan, everybody there. So thank you. Thank you for being in posterity here with me.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing me to this beautiful place.
The nice deep blue walls. I'd like to thank my landlord, Mr. Todd Murray, here at the Global Broadcasting, my associate producer, Tricia Trippett, and the Global Voice Broadcasting Operations Manager, who is my in-studio engineer, Gabe Harder. Thank you. See you all next week.
See you all. Bye-bye.
And so it seems that we have met before, and